What's going on, everybody? This is my first ride in Tesla FSD 12.3.3. No interventions. It takes me, my entire destination takes me there, and it also does the auto park as well, so I never had to use the steering wheel, the brakes, the acceleration. Is absolutely amazing. After using version 12 and especially this newer version, I understand why Elon announced today that they will be unveiling the robotaxi on August 8th, because you can tell it's just about there. You know, there may be a couple little improvements they have to make here and there, and smart summon and the integration with the FSD to the auto park, but really FSD is finally here, and it's super bullish for the stock. It's really great for its drivers, super safe as well. I really don't have my wife ever use the FSD, but I think it's at a point where I would feel really comfortable with her starting to use it. So enjoy the video, check it out. It's a really chill ride. There's some construction, there's some tight driving, but it's really interesting. Coming up here in just a minute, it makes a right turn that's really incredible. Definitely check that out. While I'm driving, I'm listening to a Spaces on Tesla and FSD, so check that out, enjoy, and leave your comments below. Let me know what you guys think of the latest version of FSD, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.
Like, because they don't, it's not like you buy FSD once and it's yours for life. You have to buy it with every car, right? So, you know, if you're, most people don't.
I think the problem is most people haven't seen the value yet of FSD to warrant that $200 a month price. I think this free trial that's happening right now, the month free FSD trial, is going to help some people open their eyes a bit to how incredible the value is for some people. But a lot of people, I suspect, are just going to wait until there are literally like almost never any disengagements, and then they'll see, okay, this is worth $200 a month.
That makes sense. I mean, think so. Like, so far, my test drives on the FSD are phenomenal. Tried using FSD last year in New York City and New Jersey, and it was one of the most miserable experiences I've had. So that's been my hesitation in terms of being on board there, because if I'm still disengaging and engaging as much as I was last year, it's definitely not the case now. It's night and day difference. My dad, who's in his late 70s, just did it for the first time today, and he's like, wow, this is insanely easy. It takes him a little time to get trustworthy with it, but he was blown away compared to what we went through last year trying to test drive it.
I would love to get into this more.
Wow, that was perfect. The FSD stopped at the light. There wasn't a right-hand turn lane there, but it saw there was a space there, and it pulled on the side, it pulled up, it stopped at the red light, and it took the turn. That was amazing. This is my first drive with 12.3.3, and so far it is crushing it. Let's see how it does.
At the drive with FSD. So this was 4 months ago. What was your reaction to those comments at the time? And has FSD materially changed since then?
Well, you know, it is what it is. So that was just the reality of it. I mean, it can sometimes make mistakes. It may try and, for example, run a stop sign or something like that, and you have to be there and take over. So in one of the videos we were making, I was kind of distracted by Galley and the camera and everything, and I didn't take over in time when it was running a stop sign, and version 11 just blew through that intersection, ran the stop sign, and of course this went viral. Everybody was saying, oh my god, this thing's terrible. But, you know, we kind of just have to present it for what it is. That was what it did, right? So it's important for people to know the good and the bad. Then Galley came back with version 12. We tried it again, same intersection. It stopped, no problem. That particular intersection had a stop sign that was a little bit blocked by a tree and leaves, so it was a little hard to see. But version 12 just smartly was able to handle it anyway. So you can definitely see improvements in scenarios like that between version 11, which made a lot more mistakes, compared to version 12, which a lot of people around the country are saying it did the entire drive for me perfectly without me having to intervene at all.
One of the things I thought was interesting too about that comment section was, in relation to kind of everyone trying to dunk on you, everybody was also like praising Waymo. It was like, wow, this Waymo machine is like really freaking good. And so from the perspective of like FSD being this, business that, Tesla's going to rely on in the future, is that worrisome that there's this other company out there that is also having these FSD things going on that seem to be, just as good as what's happening at a Tesla? Or am I off base with that connection?
I'm not worried about them. I use Waymo too. So they have a driverless service here in San Francisco. I use it in place of Uber all the time. So if I have to take a ride, I call a Waymo. I take it driverlessly. But, just to give you some context, I've driven over the last few years, let's see what it says here in the Waymo app, 131 miles in Waymo. And I've driven, probably 15,000 miles a month on FSD. So, it's just no comparison, because Waymo is, first of all, expensive, limited to a small area. You have to wait a long time for a car. It's not really anywhere close to being a car replacement. I use them both, but I love FSD because I can just ask it to take me anywhere on my own car. And what fun is self-driving if you have to stay within this narrow box? Anytime I want to leave San Francisco to go to Berkeley or something, for example, I have to go back to using a human-driven Uber. So I think it's really misunderstood how far ahead Tesla's technology is in important areas like just being able to work anywhere.
I think one of the points Sawyer made that's like people have not seen the value yet of like FSD. I think it does make sense that like having more of these vehicles out there doing this kind of stuff helps translate, oh my God, this is really cool technology. And so I could see kind of both ways being a good thing and bad thing.
Yeah, it's like what the Tesla community likes to say, butts in seats sells Teslas. You really got to experience FSD in person to really understand how incredible this technology is. It's one thing to see a video on the internet, whole different experience to be in the driver's seat.
So there's a great bit on like a recent Joe Rogan podcast episode where he talked about the future, and of the future he talked about driving vehicles and how he is 100% convinced that you're not going to be allowed to actually drive your car in the future because it's all going to be automated. How far away do you guys think we are from that reality? And in that context, is there any huge like regulatory hurdle that Tesla has to undergo to get there in the first place as far as distributing FSD more broadly?
I think it's closer than most people think, but perhaps farther away than a lot of people in the Tesla community think. Elon obviously is quite optimistic with some of his timelines. Having said that, I think FSD 12 has been a real step change in the technology. The end-to-end approach, they're no longer compute constrained. They've deleted 300,000 lines of code, and it's performing extremely well for most people. So I think we'll get there in the coming years, but we're still a ways away.
Yeah, in terms of taking away people's ability to drive, not in America, I don't think. You can pry that steering wheel out of my cold, dead hands. I love to drive, and a lot of people love to drive. But I think people will choose not to drive. I don't think you'll have to force them. I think it'll actually be so much better, so much faster. It'll know where all the construction is, it'll know where all the traffic jams are, and it'll free you up to do things that people will choose to drive very rarely, just like we very rarely choose to ride a horse. Unless, some people like to ride horses a lot.
Do you guys think FSD, right now it seems like it's a heat-seeking missile, but do you think it will actually avoid potholes at some point? Because that's been my biggest issue over the test drive over the last week, is it literally looks like it's looking for potholes while driving on FSD and like just rams right through them. Like, hey, you need a new rim, so let's get you going. But do you think this is something they'll incorporate into their programming at some point to avoid these? The Northeast has so many potholes, and they're sometimes the size of the cars. So just curious on what your experience has been first with it, and also what your thought process is around how to avoid them.
Yeah, it doesn't avoid potholes yet, but it will. Obviously, this is an essential thing to do. It's part of driving. You don't want the car just kind of jumping around a lot trying to avoid them today, but they're going to get the pothole detection looking good and ship it. So it'll visually detect potholes, but it'll also report them up to the server. So they've already started doing this, reporting rough road surfaces, and then they adjust the suspension of the car for comfort. So essentially every pothole location will get reported, it'll get spotted by the camera, and the car will even be able to get out of the lane ahead of time. Before you even see the pothole, the car will already know the pothole's there, it'll know when it's fixed. The car has accelerometers on it, so it can detect when the car goes over a pothole and save that information to the server. And I think it'll be actually way better at pothole avoidance than any human.
To switch gears just a little bit, but I think still incredibly related, is I want to think about why Elon went so aggressive with cost cutting in regards to a lot of these Tesla models. In my head, it makes sense only if you really think about it in terms of, okay, now everybody has a platform which he can further distribute products like FSD and kind of take customers further down a like subscription payment route. Was that the strategy and initiative with cost cutting in the first place? And if it's not, what was it? And do you think it's been going well so far as the effectiveness of that cost cutting that they've been doing? I don't know if someone wants to take that.
Yeah, I'll go. I don't know if the price reductions, at least with the cars themselves, has had as much of a positive impact on demand as many. I certainly thought it would be more than it has been. And we can get into later about what they can do
when you say that, you mean like you thought when they lowered prices, more people, like demand would go up, essentially?
Well, let's say for the Model Y example, like that was a $66,000 car that started at $66,000 during the pandemic. That was the cheapest version of it. Now the cheapest version is rear-wheel drive for including the EV tax credit, like $34,000, so almost a 50% difference. With the long range, I think it's closer to like 30-something%. So that's a huge deal, but in my opinion, not many people know how affordable Teslas have become. They just remember the Model S and the X and the Roadster as being really expensive luxury vehicles, and then when the Model Y came out, those prices did get really high during the pandemic because they couldn't make enough of them, so they had to increase prices, which makes sense. It's supply and demand. But then those prices sort of got seared into the brains of people, thinking like, wow, these are such expensive vehicles. And people would say, my girlfriend, like, she had to, at the time, she had to sell her Model 3, and she owned it for a year, and she sold it for $8,000 more than she paid for it. Like, that's just not normal in a normal car market. You don't profit off of a car you own for a year. That's weird. But now it's the opposite. Now Teslas are extremely affordable. You can get a Model Y for, like, in Colorado with EV tax credit and state incentives for around $28,000 brand new. That's nuts. But I just think not many people know about that.
Okay, so it took me here perfectly. I would like it to find a parking space, but that doesn't appear like it's happening. I don't know why it's not finding me a parking stall. Let me see if okay, there we go. Now it's finding me a parking stall. But it didn't go from driving to parking automatically. That's kind of a bummer, but not really too big of a deal. So let's see how it handles the parking. You do have to basically disengage the autopilot you have to disengage the FSD for it to find the parking stalls. But then it is parking me. I mean, I took this entire ride here without a single takeover, without an intervention. There was construction, there was tight traffic, there was some, I mean, it was basically just a couple turns. But I have to say, my first drive in 12.3.3 is amazing. Let me know what you guys think and your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks.